Welcome to Weaving Happiness Through Grief, where we navigate the delicate balance between love, loss, and the resilient heart. I'm Stephanie, an author and storyteller who found joy and healing after the unimaginable heartbreak of losing a once-in-a-lifetime love. This podcast dives into the raw truth of grief, the beauty of cherished memories, and the hope of new beginnings. Through my journey, rediscovering happiness and opening my heart again, I've learned that grief and joy can coexist, and love can find us when we least expect it. Join me as we honor the past, embrace the present, and step boldly into the future with courage and vulnerability. Let's celebrate the resilience of the human spirit and the beauty of living fully, even after a loss. Welcome back. It was January 2nd, 2022. I made it through those first big holidays that were so ugly and heartbreaking and alone feeling. Even though I was with people, I felt so alone and so isolated. And I started thinking about what this new year would look like, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be. Would I still live in the same home? Would I still work at the same place? All these things that were memories and things Jeff and I dreamed about together that were never going to happen. My niece in Brooklyn, New York, had called me shortly after his funeral in California, and we had run some half marathons before. In fact, I think the first one I ran with her, and she was like, "Aunt Steph, will you do this marathon with me?" in South Carolina a few years, maybe it was 7-8 years earlier. And so she got into running, we would talk about it, and that was the last one we had done together a number of years earlier, actually right before I met Jeff, about 8 years earlier. So now it's January 22, and she had reached out and asked me if I wanted to run another half with her. She had done that right after the service. And it was so sweet because I felt like it was a way of her kind of giving me a little olive branch to kind of go, "Come on, let's do something you love to do." And I think she was right about 30 at the time. And so we decided, okay, I called her in January and I said, "You know what, that offer you made back in November, let's do it. Let's do that half marathon together." So she was training on the East Coast in her snowy weather, a lot of inside running, and I was training in California. And I mapped out everything. I mapped out a plan because I needed to have a purpose. I needed to feel like I was doing something again that was valuable, because just existing, talking to friends and family and my kids, going to work, it just didn't feel like I had any kind of purpose anymore. Because everything was so centered around Jeff's life and his health and saving him. So this marathon was great. It got me out of this space in my head. And I love to run. So I mapped out a 8-week or 10-week plan of exactly how I was going to get through it. And we picked the location. We like to pick locations that were fun. So we chose Key Biscayne in the Florida area, or southern Florida. We went there. That was our plan to go in April. And I planned to do this half marathon. I'm training for all these weeks. I have my new shoes I bought, new running shoes, trade them out. I got back to I hadn't run a half marathon. I realized the last one I ran was in Calgary. That first time I went to Canada. So that was years ago. I kept running, but I didn't do any half marathons anymore. There was just no time to train for them. So we chose the location. We like to pick somewhere fun and different that neither of us have been to before. And this was part of the planning and some of the planning that Jeff and I like to do. And so the fun is in the planning, at least for us it was. So on these many runs that I was doing throughout Chino Hills, where I lived at the time, I came up with the idea to turn this marathon into something more. And so I called it the marathon, this half marathon, I called it Turning Pain into Purpose. And that was kind of how I promoted it on Facebook and to family and friends. And anyone that wanted to give any amount of money was going to go to the Cam Neely House. And it wasn't just to thank them for what they did for Jeff and I and how special that was to us, but it was also to assist other families, because the money was going to help families who were in the Boston area seeking cancer treatments at Tufts University. And the Cam Neely House would help them during their time of need. And our time was over. We didn't need those kind of services anymore. But this was a great way to a tribute to Jeff and honor his memory and hand this money over that was raised for the half marathon that I was going to be running. So it felt great. Every time I ran, I just was invigorated and energized, and it was a wonderful feeling. And I started to kind of feel like I was getting back in my groove again. Like I was just, the rhythm was coming back, and it felt fantastic. So everything was feeling not normal, not great, but I was just feeling like I was getting in a groove and getting in my rhythm, and things were starting just to feel like I was living life again and not in this dark hole where I had been feeling for so long, waiting for Jeff to pass, knowing it was coming, and then after trying to figure out how to get out of it. And then this freedom started feeling, like this feeling of freedom, like I wanted to explore more and I wanted to do things, and it was scary because I was going to do them alone. So the plan was in place. The training was happening. The money was being raised, and it was a fantastic feeling. I thought, I'm already down in Key Biscayne, southern Florida. Why don't I take a trip on my own? I'd never done that before. Back when I was practicing law, I had done some work trips by myself, but that was very different. That was planned. I had the hotel, the flights, and whatnot. And this was something different. I'd heard about people doing this, but I just had never done it myself, to go on an actual vacation alone. So I was mustering up the courage to take this solo trip and plan it and book it after the half marathon with my niece and her mom, my dear friend, Steph. It was scary. It was really scary for me. I didn't want to do it, but I wanted to do it. So I pushed myself to do it. I did a lot of research on different islands, what felt safe, where I'd be comfortable. And I picked a place that was kind of an all-inclusive, so I didn't have to leave the resort if I didn't want to. And I narrowed it down to the Caribbean, primarily also because Jeff and I wanted to go to the Caribbean. That was one of the things on his bucket list of hope that he never got to check off. So I thought this little now trip will have two purposes. Well, three, really. The marathon, which was great. Raising the money for the Cam Neely Foundation was one. And of course, running with my niece was a wonderful experience. And going to the Caribbean and pushing myself to do something so different and by myself, not knowing anyone on the island. And that was scary, but intimidating and so liberating. But then I realized at the very end, I'd always have this tiny little urn. It's got like ocean blues waves on it. And I would take that with me anywhere I went, anywhere, in my purse, everywhere I went, Jeff came with me. So I brought it with me to the Caribbean, and I decided that I would spread some of his ashes in the water at the resort there. And I did that one of those days. And it was beautiful. And I just did a little tribute to him privately, quietly. And it was so special. And a lot of tears were had, but at the same time it was, you're here with me, honey. And I spread some of his ashes there. And then other things happened while I was on that trip. I was laying there just talking to people like I like to do and socialize now. And I was finding myself again, and I was talking and socializing and talking to these couples and these women and some people in their 20s, and a variety of things happened. And all of a sudden, like this catamaran was pulling up, and it looked like a lot of fun. I'd been on them before, but I've never been on one alone. And I literally just grabbed my stuff, asked them what the price was to take the trip on the boat or the catamaran around the island. I just hopped right on. And at that moment, I was like, I can do whatever, whenever. And I'm doing it alone, but I'm going to have fun and I'm going to enjoy it. And these were the ways that I started pulling myself out of it and creating these moments of self-care, like running and taking trips and being with people and friends and family. And I did them, and I started doing them. Initially, it was a little bit of, I don't want to say guilt. I don't really like that word. It's not a word I say much in my vocabulary, but just feeling like it didn't feel right to do it without Jeff. But I forced myself to do it because that was the rest of my life. And I was 53 years old at the time. And I had a lot of life to live still. And I didn't want to do it in a dark hole in a dark place alone. I still wanted to find joy and happiness and laughter. So this freedom, this newfound freedom, it was incredible. A girlfriend invited me to go on a cruise ship with her that she had already planned a long time earlier. Michelle asked me to go, and we had a great time. And we had a lot of fun and a lot of laughs. We went to a comedy show there, and cruising's not even my thing. I'm not a big fan of it, but I went anyway. And I spent a lot of time alone. I ran around the ship training for the marathon. And then there was a lot of people, and the people at the bar, and guys might be hitting on you, and this kind of thing would happen. I had zero interest. Like, it was not even in my wheelhouse. And I got home from all these different trips and doing these different things. And then one day, I don't know, some switch just literally flipped. It was like there was no thought about it. There was no planning. There was no should I, shouldn't I. I just literally woke up and I called my kids first. I called Maddie and Jake and I said, I think I'm ready to date again. In fact, I said, I'm not think I'm ready. I said, I'm ready. I didn't think I'd ever want to date. And in that moment, I knew I was ready. And so the dating life began.
As we close this episode of Weaving Happiness Through Grief, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey of remembrance, resilience, and rediscovery. Loss is a path none of us choose, but together we can walk through it, honoring the love that was and of the life that still awaits us. If today's story touched a part of your own journey, know that you're not alone. Grief, though profound, doesn't close us off from joy. It teaches us how to hold space for both love and loss. And sometimes, it opens our hearts to unexpected new beginnings. Join me next time as we continue to explore healing, acceptance, and the beautiful bittersweet moments that remind us life can still be filled with happiness. And remember, while we honor the love that has shaped us, we open ourselves to the hope that the future holds. Please head over to the show notes to find out more of the ways I offer guidance on the topics I discuss in the podcast, or visit thestephanieduran.com. Until next time, take gentle steps forward, hold your memories close, and know that joy and love in all its forms continues on.